The most insane success family story I have heard. So I was going to talk about my conversation with my dad about my thoughts on getting an MBA and leaving medicine, and while it was a civil conversation, I felt this story was more prevalent to talk about, and it mainly involves an older cousin, her dead father, my uncle, and why I hate him, and a fundamental flaw in not only Indian capitalistic society, but other ones as well when it comes to the arts. To wrap up my conversation, he wasn't angry about my ideas to do sales instead of medicine, but he did say that I wouldn't live a good life financially, that since him and mom wouldn't be around much longer that I would have to be prepared to be on my own, and many other doubts that I am trying to reconcile with. But besides my doubts, he talked in length about a success story of my cousin who was adamantly against medicine, who is now apparently happy about going into it now and changing her mind supposedly. Basically, an older cousin of who lives in India was pushed into medicine by force at the behest of her family. I mean forced in the sense that she was deliberately pushed into the van to take her to medical school to become a doctor. She was so adamantly against it that she purposefully failed her classes in her first year, and eventually her father lambasted her for it, saying he won't be on this earth much longer and if she doesn't support her financially, and a bunch of other stuff. Sounds familiar, I know. This apparently motivated her to finish medical school, have an arranged marriage with a rich guy, and she is apparently living happily ever after in her life. But I have some doubts on this story that she is entirely happy, and while I ain't that close to many of my relatives in India including her, I do know that the same cousin wanted to be a traditional Indian dancer, and I even saw clips of her doing so. And she was pretty good at what she did. Yet her family kinda squashed her creative pursuits professionally, yet at the same time bragged about her dancing ability. I am sure many of y'all know the hypocrisy of going about achievements or pursuits to others while discouraging or hating on you for having said achievements or pursuits. Now, I don't wish to speak ill of the dead, but based on this story I can't say my uncle is the good guy in this story, and it made me resent him. I really didn't know much about him outside of high-end buys, but he sounds horrible and I truly hate him. I have similar feelings to my father, except he didn't push me into the van, or in my case plain by force. Granted, he didn't have to, since I wanted to see if medicine is the right route, and each day I am here, I have severe doubts. I also have doubts on doing sales as well, given my conversation with my dad, and honestly I am anxious about what I want and where I should go. I truly speaking wanted to do stand-up comedy, but I needed a day job. I don't care what it is so long as it pays well. And I can use it a crutch if stand-up comedy doesn't work out. But it brings me to my next point on how Indian society and capitalism has made the arts untenable for people like me and my cousin. This is seen in Western countries too, but definitely prevalent in a much hyper way in Indian society, because a lot of Indians like my APS and my family have bought the model minority myth of success, and we as Indians should only pursue professional jobs like doctor, engineer, lawyer, etc., and other jobs are categorically unsuccessful and to be looked upon, including the arts. My APS have an iota of a point when they say that jobs and markets are terrible and you should have a stable job that makes a good income, and I agree, but I also don't want to be stuck in a job I hate either. It's a lot of fear they rely on to pursue their point, and I hate it so much. While I still intend to pursue the arts in the future regardless of whatever day job I have, I know she isn't. And I feel defeated that I feel alone in my family to prove my APS wrong. I just feel alone, anxious, and uncertain about the future, and my family even in India do not help, and their stories are somehow supposed to be seen as good, but I see it in a much more depressing way.